What if, what if the absolute biggest lie in business is that hiring more salespeople is the key to increasing your sales?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's such a massive misconception.
Right, like if you are a CEO or, a VP of sales or even just trying to bootstrap a startup right now, you've probably lived this nightmare.
Oh, absolutely. The burnout is real.
Yeah, you're burning out, you're stressing over quotas, and you're just throwing all this money at the completely wrong problem. You keep hiring, the payroll swells up, but the revenue line is just, it stays stubbornly flat.
It's infuriating.
It really is. You
Well,
feel like you're doing everything the traditional playbooks tell you to do, but the engine is just sputtering. So today we're doing a deep dive into chapter 1 of predictable revenue, and we're going to unpack exactly why that happens.
yeah, because it is arguably like the most pervasive, damaging illusion in modern corporate strategy right now.
For sure. So our mission today for this deep dive is to trace the exact origins of how a simple shift in lead generation generated over $100 million at Salesforce.
Which is just a staggering number.
Right. And you're going to learn why true business growth relies on self-managing systems, not just, desperate end-of-quarter hustle.
Yeah, because we really have an entire generation of leaders who are conditioned to believe that revenue is just this direct mathematical output of the sheer number of humans you have dialing phones.
Exactly. Like more feet on the street equals more money.
Right, which is
Uh-huh.
just totally false. To appreciate the cure here, we really need to sit with the illness for a minute.
Let's do it.
We have to look at why so many well-funded companies are just utterly failing to grow predictably. And it usually traces back to this one fundamental error, this ritual that happens in corporate boardrooms every single winter.
Oh, I know exactly the ritual you're talking about, the January planning meeting.
Yes, the whiteboard comes out, the coffee is flowing.
Someone draws a beautiful, aggressive hockey stick growth chart.
Exactly, that's step one. The board basically mandates this massive revenue target for the upcoming year. And often, this target isn't even based on market conditions.
Right, it's based on valuation desires.
Exactly. They need to show a certain growth percentage to secure the next round of funding. So
Mhm.
the mandate comes down from the mountain, like, we need to grow revenue by $10 million this year.
Okay, which makes sense on the surface. Like, companies need aggressive goals. But how does that mandate turn into the fatal mistake?
Well, it translates into step two, which is where the math just goes horribly, horribly wrong.
Okay.
The VP of sales looks at that $10 million gap. Then they look at the historical quota of their average salesperson. Let's just say it's $1 million a year.
Nice round number.
Right. So the VP simply divides the $10 million goal by the $1 million quota and gets 10. The strategy is now officially go hire 10 new salespeople.
Wait, hold on. Why is that wrong? If I know my current reps bring in $1 million each and I need 10 million more, hiring 10 more reps seems like basic arithmetic.
I know, it sounds logical, but you are confusing correlation with causation there.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the paradigm shift you have to internalize is that in a high productivity sales organization, salespeople do not cause customer acquisition growth.
They don't.
No, they fulfill it.
Okay, I'm struggling to see the distinction. Fulfilling versus causing.
Yeah.
If a rep closes a deal, didn't they cause that revenue?
They captured the revenue, sure, but they didn't necessarily generate the underlying demand that made that conversation happen in the first place.
Oh, I see.
Think about the environment. When you just tell a VP to hire 10 more people, you're assuming those 10 people are going to just walk in the door, plug in their phones, and somehow manifest buyers out of thin air.
Right, like treating the salesperson as the lead gen, the qualifier, and the closer all wrapped into one.
Exactly. And that is a pre-internet strategy. It completely fails today.
Ah, okay. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like it's like a factory assembly line.
Yes, great analogy.
You're saying the board's strategy is basically looking at the end of the assembly line, deciding we need more finished cars rolling out the door, and choosing to hire 10 more people to stand at the very end of the belt to just polish the hoods.
That's exactly what it's like.
But if you haven't bought more steel or, hired more welders, the people at the end of the line are just going to be standing around holding their polishing cloths, staring at an empty conveyor belt.
Right. You increased your capacity to process demand, but you did literally nothing to generate the raw materials.
You have the people to ring up the sales, but the aisles are completely empty.
Exactly. You are scaling the bottleneck at the completely wrong end of the funnel. And this systemic failure triggers step 3 of the whole painful planning mistake.
Which is the actual hiring part, right?
Yeah. The VP of sales now has to go hire these 10 people, and recruiting top-tier sales talent is agonizingly slow.
Oh, it takes forever.
You're competing with everyone, you make bad hires, people back out. It might take 4 months just to get the seats filled.
And even when they're finally sitting in the seats, they aren't producing on day one.
Far from it. That's the hidden tax of the headcount strategy. A new rep might have a ramp-up period of 6 to 9 months before they're fully productive.
But the board started the clock in January.
Exactly.
So we hit step 4, the year-end panic. It's November. The 10 new reps were hired in May. They finally understand the product by October, and they've just been staring at an empty conveyor belt because nobody built a system to feed them leads.
And the whiteboard chart from January is a total joke now.
The board is furious, the VP is terrified of getting fired, and the reps are demoralized.
And what happens in November when everyone is panicking? Desperation. The VP starts screaming at the reps to, work harder, hustle, make more calls.
Offering massive discounts just to squeeze a few deals in.
Yeah, margin-destroying discounts. It's a toxic environment. You're basically walking on hot coals every single day, managing by hope instead of a system.
So let's ground this with a concrete example from the text. Competitor A versus competitor B. They both want to grow from 10 million to 20 million.
Right.
Competitor B follows that broken playbook. They just double their sales force from 10 to 20 reps and cross their fingers.
A massive expansion of overhead with zero guarantee of output.
Exactly. But competitor A only grows from 10 to 15 reps. Instead, they take all that saved money and focus heavily on generating $3 million a month in pipeline.
And let's clarify that. What do we mean by pipeline?
Good point. Qualified pipeline isn't just a list of random emails. It's the raw steel on the conveyor belt people who fit your profile and actually agreed to evaluate your product.
Right. And competitor A realizes if they can just consistently drop that raw steel onto the front of the conveyor belt, their 15 reps will easily process it and hit the goal.
So the practical takeaway here for you listening is to stop tying your revenue goals purely to headcount. You have to focus entirely on how much qualified pipeline you're generating per month.
And here's the rub, it's really easy for us to sit behind microphones and say, just generate pipeline.
Right, just get more leads.
Yeah, if I'm a panicking VP, how do I actually build that?
Which brings us to the second key idea, the structural foundation of the sales machine. What actually drives that qualified pipeline?
There are 3 pillars required to build a predictable revenue machine. You miss one, the whole structure collapses.
Okay, lay them out.
Pillar 1 is predictable lead generation. That's the engine. Pillar 2 is a dedicated sales development team.
The SDRs.
Yes, that's the transmission connecting the engine to the wheels. And Pillar 3 is consistent sales systems. Those are the dashboards that ensure everything is on track.
Let's zero in on that first pillar, lead generation. Because everyone wants leads, but they usually reach for unpredictable levers.
Oh, constantly. Let's look at time to results.
Yeah, like word of mouth. It's high value, but incredibly slow. You can't just turn the word of mouth dial up 20% in October to hit Q4 numbers.
It's totally passive. You're just waiting for the phone to ring.
And PR public relations only works once in a while. It's a sugar rush.
Right, a spike of traffic and then nothing.
Then you have inbound marketing writing blogs, teaching, which is great, but it's like planting an orchard.
It takes 18 months to see a yield.
Exactly. So the true hero here, according to the text, is outbound prospecting or cold calling 2.0.
Yes, it is the most controllable, predictable source of pipeline. But it takes immense focus.
So here's where it gets really interesting to me. If outbound is so predictable, why do so many companies resist it and just lean back on PR or inbound marketing?
Because of the psychological friction of the second pillar, the sales development team.
Ah, right.
To make this work, you have to build a specialized team of junior salespeople, SDRs, who focus 100% on prospecting.
They never close deals, right?
Never. They are explicitly forbidden from closing. And that terrifies traditional management.
Yeah, I'd push back on that too. If I have a hungry junior rep who finds a hot prospect, why wouldn't I let them close it? Doesn't that destroy motivation?
It seems counterintuitive until you look at context switching.
Okay.
Think about a full-cycle salesperson. Closing a deal gives you a massive dopamine hit. It's fun.
You're winning?
Exactly. Prospecting, on the other hand, is miserable. It's just endless, ego-bruising rejection.
So if a rep has a choice between chasing a warm $50,000 contract or sending 50 cold emails.
They will never send the emails. Never. Prospecting always falls to the bottom of the
The
list.
factory grinds to a halt.
Right. They close a few deals, their pipeline empties out, and suddenly they're back on the revenue roller coaster.
Wow. So you have to carve out a dedicated team just for outbound.
You must, but a lot of canning executives just lack the upfront investment of time and discipline to do it.
Which brings us to the origin story. How did these three keys actually get discovered? Because
That-
it wasn't in some corporate boardroom.
No, it was born out of a massive ego check.
Yeah, let's talk about Aaron Ross.
So Aaron used to be a CEO himself, making the exact fatal planning mistakes we just talked about.
His startup actually failed.
Yeah.
Right.
It did. He had to fail to realize he fundamentally didn't know how to create predictable revenue.
That's a tough pill to swallow for a former CEO.
But instead of blaming the market, she decided he needed an MBA in building world-class sales organizations.
And he did that by taking a massive step down. He accepted a $50,000 a year junior sales role at Salesforce.com in 2002.
With basically zero equity, he was essentially answering their 1-800 line.
That is wild. This raises an important question, though. How many leaders are willing to check their ego at the door like that?
Very few. But Aaron emphasizes that failure is just a judgment of an experience. There were no actual failures, only learning opportunities.
So what was the reality of the situation at Salesforce when he got there? Because we think of them as a juggernaut now.
Oh, in 2002, they were struggling. They had these expensive field salespeople starving for pipeline.
The veterans with the magical Rolodexes.
Right. But the Rolodexes were useless because they were trying to sell SaaS software as a service to IT executives who hated SaaS.
Because SaaS threatened their jobs.
Exactly. And the inbound leads they were getting were all for small mom-and-pop businesses, not the enterprise clients they wanted.
So Aaron is told to just do traditional cold calling to get these enterprise leads.
And he absolutely hated it.
Because it was totally ineffective.
Yes, but because he was in the absolute trenches doing the work, he was highly incentivized to fix it. Don't let pride stop you from doing what's necessary to learn a fundamental skill. Sometimes you have to get into the mud to understand why the plumbing is broken.
So once he's in the trenches, what did that learning opportunity actually yield?
The creation of the process that generated $100 million.
Let's break that down. Key idea 4.
Aaron had two massive breakthroughs. The first was predictable results and ROI. By creating a highly repeatable prospecting process using targeted emails instead of blind calls, 95% of his reps exceeded their numbers.
95%.
Yeah, it democratized pipeline generation.
So what does this mean for the bottom line?
It meant they could perfectly predict the future. They knew that hiring one SDR who cost $100,000 fully loaded.
That includes benefits, desk space, management time.
Right. That one SDR would predictably generate $3 million in total contracts.
That is incredible. 100 grand in, 3 million out.
And they knew exactly how long that person would take to become cash flow positive.
Which leads to the second breakthrough, self-managing systems.
Yes, the hit by a bus principle.
Okay, explain this.
If the manager of the team or the CEO gets hit by a bus tomorrow, does the team keep running?
Oh, man. For most startups, the answer is no.
Right. Too many companies rely on the CEO or the VP for selling. Aaron designed the entire process so that no single person was a bottleneck.
So your sales results are only scalable to the extent that the CEO and executives are designed out of the day-to-day process.
Exactly. Build systems that manage themselves.
Okay, I can hear a listener right now thinking, sure, this worked because it was Salesforce.com. They had unlimited money and brand power.
Oh, the classic excuse. We don't have the marketing budget.
We have to dismantle this excuse.
Yeah.
Key idea 5, making your lack of money an advantage.
The truth is, lack of money is usually just a convenient excuse for a lack of creativity.
Because at Salesforce, how much did they spend on marketing to build this outbound team?
Exactly. $0.
Zero.
The only investment was Aaron's salary.
And let's paint the picture of the massive obstacles they faced. In 2003, outside of California, nobody knew who Salesforce was.
No one.
When they called Fortune 5000, prospects thought they were an outsourced sales recruiting company.
Salesforce, yeah.
Plus, it was just after the dot-com bust. Trust was at an all-time low. And Gartner, the biggest tech research firm, was publishing reports saying SaaS was only for small businesses, not enterprises.
It was a wildly hostile market.
They were essentially trying to sell a concept nobody believed in for a brand nobody recognized with $0. It's like trying to launch a luxury restaurant in a deserted alleyway with no advertising.
That's a great way to put it. But what they did have was one fully committed person, two tools, the Salesforce app, and a database called OneSource, and the freedom to experiment for 3 months.
And an optimistic attitude.
Right. In fact, if they had been given a massive budget, they probably would have just bought terrible banner ads.
They wouldn't have been forced to get creative and invent cold calling 2.0.
Exactly. Constraints breed innovation.
So the practical takeaway here is to stop waiting for ideal conditions or more budget or perfect market recognition. Use your current constraints to force innovation. There is always a way forward without money.
Always.
So let's tie all these progressive ideas together, the synthesis of this whole chapter.
Yeah, the soul of the chapter really comes down to this.
Yeah.
True exponential business growth doesn't come from working twice as hard, or throwing bodies at a quota, or having an unlimited budget.
Yeah.
It comes from having the humility to learn the ground-level mechanics of your business, and the discipline to engineer a predictable, self-managing system that generates qualified pipeline.
Because revenue is simply the logical, mathematical output of a well-designed lead generation machine.
Boom! That's exactly it.
Fix the inputs, and the outputs take care of themselves.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. It is always so fun to break down these core mechanics with you.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
But of course, we are leaving you with a bit of a cliffhanger. Now that we know why we need this predictable pipeline and how it was born out of complete failure and zero budget, how exactly do you reach C-suite executives who absolutely hate being sold to?
That is the million-dollar question.
In our next dive, we'll uncover the secrets of cold calling 2.0 and explore why the death of the traditional cold call was actually the best thing to ever happen to sales. Think about what your own bottlenecks are, and we'll see you next time. Imagine you're sitting in a boardroom, right? And you are tasked with quadrupling your company's sales over the next 12 months.
Oh, wow. Okay. High stakes.
Yeah, the stakes are incredibly high. But here is the catch. You are absolutely forbidden from making a single traditional cold call.
None.
None. Your team cannot pick up the phone and dial a stranger. Period.
I mean, for most sales teams, that sounds like professional suicide.
Exactly. Throwing away, the most universally accepted sales practice in modern business seems like a guaranteed way to bankrupt a company. But what if that exact constraint, like being forced to abandon that brute force method of dialing for dollars, what if that is the precise catalyst that built a $100 billion revenue machine?
It sounds totally counterintuitive when you phrase it that way, but, well, we're just so conditioned to believe that more activity automatically equals more results.
Right.
But when you strip away that blunt instrument that the whole industry relies on, you actually force a level of systemic innovation that just wouldn't happen otherwise.
You stop swinging the hammer and you invent a nail gun.
Exactly. You have to build a better system.
And that is the perfect way to frame our mission for today's deep dive. We are going into Chapter 2 of the book Predictable Revenue.
Such a good book.
It really is. And the focus of this specific chapter is a concept that completely upended the B2B landscape. It's a methodology known as cold calling 2.0.
Yeah, and for anyone listening right now, whether you're an entrepreneur trying to bootstrap a startup or maybe a sales director staring down a really intimidating quarterly quota.
Or just someone fascinated by how businesses actually scale.
Exactly. You are going to learn the mechanics of transforming the most dreaded, soul-crushing activity in business, the cold calling, into a highly predictable, highly repeatable, and surprisingly intellectual system for explosive revenue.
So the fundamental premise of this chapter just hits you right between the eyes, which is traditional cold calling is dead.
Dead and buried.
Yeah, the text does not mince words. That old, always be closing mentality, right?
Yeah.
That aggressive boiler room posture where reps try to just bully a prospect into a meeting.
The whole Wolf of Wall Street vibe.
Right. The manipulative conversational traps, the obsessive management focus on logging, like 100 dials a day. None of it works anymore. It is completely obsolete.
Yeah, the source material dissects the death of what it calls cold calling 1.0, and it looks at 3 distinct market dynamics that just made it totally unsustainable.
Okay, let's break those down.
Sure. So the first dynamic is severe buyer resistance. I mean, buyers are just exhausted. Over the past few decades, they've built up these massive walls to resist pushy tactics.
I do have to play devil's advocate here for a second, though. Are buyers actually more resistant today, or are sales reps just getting worse at, building rapport?
That's a fair question.
Because people have always hated being sold to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yet cold calling built massive industries in the 80s and 90s.
It did, but it's really a structural shift in the buyer's environment now, not just a shift in their mood. You have to think about the technological defenses buyers have today.
Oh, like caller ID.
Exactly. In the cold calling 1.0 era, the telephone was literally an open door to someone's desk. You couldn't block it.
Right, you just picked up the phone.
But today, decision makers are insulated by sophisticated phone trees, aggressive spam filters, caller ID, and just a general cultural acceptance of ignoring unknown
We
numbers.
all just screen our calls now. It's totally normal.
Right. Furthermore, the modern buyer is highly educated. They do not need a salesperson to tell them what the market options are.
No, they can just Google it in 5 minutes.
Exactly. So when a rep interrupts their day with a canned pitch, the buyer immediately recognizes the pattern. They smell the desperation.
And the psychological resistance just becomes insurmountable at that point.
Completely. The friction of that unwanted interruption just instantly kills any chance of trust.
Which makes the environment incredibly hostile for a traditional dialer. And I think that brings us to the second dynamic the chapter outlines, which is purely internal, the rise of modern tracking technology.
Right, Sales 2.0 tech. With the advent of advanced CRMs, the terrible return on investment of traditional cold calling was suddenly dragged out into the light.
Because before, a sales manager would just walk the floor, right? They'd hear a rep talking loudly on the phone, see a whiteboard full of tally marks, and just assume, hey, that rep is being highly productive.
Yeah, motion was mistaken for progress.
Exactly.
But once everything became trackable, the data exposed this really brutal reality. Managers could suddenly see the whole funnel.
Every single step.
Yeah, they could track exactly how many hundreds of blind dials it took just to get one human being to answer the phone.
Let alone actually talk to them.
Right, and then how many of those connections led to a meaningful conversation, and how many of those actually turned into closed revenue.
And when you lay that math out on a spreadsheet, I mean, the data just proves that cold calling 1.0 is mostly a mathematical waste of time. The conversion rates are just abysmal.
They really are, and when you have that irrefutable data, it triggers the third dynamic, which is executive accountability.
Because a CEO is no longer satisfied with a spreadsheet showing a rep made 500 dials this week.
No, they want proof of revenue. They are demanding documented proof that the budget they gave the prospecting team is yielding actual pipeline.
The scrutiny on ROI is just microscopic now. Traditional cold calling cannot stand up to the math. It just burns cash and time for a totally negligible return.
And if we step back and look at the psychological toll, cold calling 1.0 was essentially just a brute force numbers game built on mutual misery.
Literal misery, yeah.
The salesperson hated their job because of constant rejection, and the prospect hated the call because it was an uninvited disruption.
Management was just focused on the wrong end of the equation. They managed the activities instead of the results. I always look at it like a fisherman trying to catch a really specific type of trout in a massive, deep lake.
Okay, I like this.
Cold calling 1.0 is like the fisherman just blindly throwing sticks of dynamite into the water, hoping the explosion eventually concusses the right fish and floats it to the surface.
That is a chaotic image, but it's so accurate.
Right. It's incredibly loud, it's messy, it takes massive explosive energy, and ultimately, just scares all the good fish away and leaves the water totally toxic.
And it leaves the fisherman exhausted, holding an empty net.
Exactly.
So the immediate practical takeaway here for you listening is to really audit how you measure success. You have to stop measuring your team's effectiveness by sheer volume.
So no more celebrating 1,000 generic emails or 100 blind dials.
No, it means nothing. You must shift your primary metric to qualified opportunities. The focus has to move from the noise of the activity to the quality of the result.
Which raises the really obvious question, how do we actually get to those qualified conversations if we aren't allowed to throw the dynamite?
Right, how do you catch the fish?
Exactly. And this brings us to this fascinating origin story from the text. It's the year 2003, and the author of the book is working at Salesforce.com.
A very different Salesforce than we know today.
Oh, completely.
Uh-huh.
And he is specifically tasked with figuring out a scalable outbound sales process. So he is putting in grueling hours, banging the phones, doing the classic cold call grind.
He's failing.
He is totally failing. He is only generating like 2 highly qualified opportunities a month, and his mandate is to generate 8.
So he's missing his target by a mile.
By a massive margin.
And the breakthrough here really comes from his analysis of the specific bottleneck he was hitting. Because when he broke down his failures, the core issue wasn't that he couldn't handle objections.
Right. It wasn't a skill issue on the phone.
And it wasn't that the product was bad. The absolute biggest hurdle he faced was simply finding the right person to talk to within these massive organizations.
Oh man, this resonates so deeply for anyone who sells to enterprise companies.
It's a nightmare.
It is. If you're targeting some Byzantine Fortune 5000 corporation, trying to figure out their internal structure from the outside is impossible.
Because they might have 50 people with variations of, VP of operations or director of marketing.
Exactly. And a directory is completely useless because titles don't actually translate to functional buying power.
No, they don't.
You end up spending 90% of your day just hunting for a name, playing internal phone tag, and getting bounced around by a receptionist.
And that structural opacity is what led to what the text calls the desperation experiment.
I love that name.
Right. It was a Friday afternoon, which is, the classic time for throwing things at the wall to see what sticks.
When you're just totally burnt out.
Yeah, he was exhausted by the friction of the phones. So he decided to test a wildly different email-based approach. He isolated 2 distinct batches of C-suite executives at these big target companies.
So 100 executives in each batch, right?
Exactly. And he ran an A/B test that essentially changed the whole trajectory of B2B sales.
Okay, let's unpack this test.
So the first batch of 100 executives received the classic long-winded sales pitch email. It was exactly what you would expect.
Like, we are Salesforce. Do you struggle with tracking your pipeline? Here is a huge bulleted list of features.
Here's why we're better. Do you have 15 minutes on Tuesday for a demo?
The digital equivalent of throwing the dynamite.
Yes. But the second batch received something radically different. It was plain text. No fancy HTML formatting, no company logos in the signature.
No bullet points.
None. It was incredibly short, like 3 sentences total. And crucially, it didn't pitch the software at all.
Wait, no pitch in a sales email.
None. It simply asked one honest question, a request for a referral to the right person at the company who handles their sales processes.
That's it, just asking for directions.
That's it. And let's look at the actual outcome because the numbers are just staggering.
I can imagine.
On the classic, feature-heavy sales pitch email, a flat 0% response rate. Absolute crickets.
0, wow.
But on the short, plain text referral email, a massive response rate of over 9%.
9% from the C-suite, that is unheard of.
It is. That single, subtle tweak, asking the executive for directions instead of asking them for a sale, resulted in a 500% increase in tangible results.
And within a month of adopting this, he went from struggling to get 2 opportunities to easily generating 11 highly qualified sales opportunities.
When we dissect the mechanics of why this works so effectively, it reveals this really profound truth about corporate hierarchy and executive psychology.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Well, high-level executives, CEOs, chief revenue officers, they have a zero-tolerance policy for being sold to by an unsolicited vendor.
Their guards are completely up.
Right. But they are intensely aware of how their organization is structured. And honestly, their primary function all day long is delegating tasks to their subordinates.
Okay, I have to pause here because I'm putting myself in the shoes of a listener who might be honestly terrified by this advice.
How so?
Well, if I draft an email right now and send it to the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, my immediate fear is that I'm going to anger them.
You feel like you're spamming them.
Yeah, I'm afraid they're going to forward my email to their IT department, blacklist my company's domain, and I'll have just burned a bridge with a massive account before I even built it. How is this not just executive spam?
That is a very valid fear, but it fundamentally misunderstands how executives process communication. The source text makes a really sharp distinction here.
Okay.
An executive considers an email spam when it is a long, manipulative, self-serving pitch that demands their time to evaluate a product.
Because they resent being asked to do the cognitive work of evaluating a vendor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
However, if your email is plainly formatted, reads easily on a mobile device, and just asks a simple, respectful, administrative question like, who is the best person for a brief conversation about X? It is not processed as spam.
It's just treated as a standard business inquiry.
Right. You aren't demanding they buy anything. You are offering them a simple binary choice. Delete it or forward it to the person whose actual job it is to evaluate these things.
And because it's plain text, it doesn't look like it came from some automated marketing blast. It looks like a real human being typed out a note looking for help.
That authenticity is the key. The executive reads it in 5 seconds on their phone, types, "Please handle this" at the top, and forwards it to the appropriate VP.
And this is where the magic happens.
Oh, absolutely.
Because when that VP receives an email from an SDR, they might just ignore it. But when that VP receives an email forwarded by their CEO that says, please handle this, that VP is absolutely unequivocally going to take your call.
You have bypassed the gatekeeper entirely.
Yes, you've secured an internal referral that is literally mandated by the top of the food chain.
The power dynamic shifts instantly. You are no longer an annoying vendor interrupting their day. You are following up on a directive from their boss.
Which changes the entire nature of the subsequent conversation. And I think this leads us directly to the core framework of what the author actually built.
The 2.0 system.
Right. And there is a massive irony in the term cold calling 2.0. Because, as the chapter explicitly defines it, cold calling 2.0 involves absolutely zero cold calling.
Right. If we define a traditional cold call as surprising someone on the phone who doesn't know you and isn't expecting to hear from you, then this new system entirely eradicates that practice.
So what are the actual principles of the 2.0 system?
The text structures it around three unyielding principles. The first, like we just established, is that there are no cold calls. You prospect into cold accounts exclusively via the email referral method.
So the goal is to generate that internal introduction first.
Exactly, so that when you finally do pick up the phone to dial the decision maker, it is a scheduled, expected interaction.
You're warming the account up before you ever speak. What's the second principle?
The second principle is a complete overhaul of management metrics. You must focus on results, not activities.
You have to dismantle the whiteboards tracking the dials.
Yes, stop incentivizing noise. Instead, you measure the conversion metrics. How many referral emails were sent? How many of those resulted in a qualification call?
And most importantly, how many of those calls converted into a highly qualified opportunity that the closing team actually accepted?
Right. It aligns the SDR's compensation with actual business value rather than just raw vocal cord exertion.
That makes so much sense. And the third principle.
The third is perhaps the most transformative from a human resources perspective. You must develop respected experts.
Meaning you can't just staff this team with, like, low-level telemarketers reading a robotic script.
Exactly. If you treat your SDRs like sweatshop dialers, you will get sweatshop results.
Yeah.
You have to train them and treat them as highly skilled researchers and sophisticated business developers.
I really want to linger on this third principle because it represents a tectonic shift in the mindset of the salesperson.
It changes everything about the job.
It does. The 1.0 era was built on the panic of always be closing. If you miraculously got a prospect on the line, your only goal was to force them down a funnel, handle objections, and secure a demo.
It was very adversarial.
Highly adversarial. But the 2.0 mindset flips that fundamental question. The rep is no longer asking, how do I trick this person into buying? The rep is asking, is there a mutual fit here?
The entire posture shifts from selling to researching. The SDR's primary objective on that first call is not to pitch the product's features.
So what are they doing?
Their job is to interview the prospect. They need to uncover their current business processes and pain points and figure out if it even makes sense to continue the conversation.
So they're almost looking for a reason to say no.
Exactly. A skilled SDR is looking for structural reasons to disqualify the prospect just as diligently as they are looking for reasons to qualify them.
By removing the pressure to close, you remove that desperate, manipulative energy that buyers resent so much.
Think of how that alters the day-to-day psychology of the person doing the job.
Oh, it's night and day.
Instead of waking up dreading the fact that they have to endure 50 hostile rejections from annoyed strangers, these reps feel empowered.
Because they're learning high-level business acumen. They're learning how to interview executives, how to map out the organizational structure of a massive corporation.
They are having peer-to-peer, authentic conversations. It restores dignity to the profession.
It treats the SDR as a consultant diagnosing a problem, rather than just some street vendor pushing a product.
That's a great way to put it.
I actually like to explain it using a dating analogy.
Oh, let's hear it.
So, cold calling 1.0 is like walking up to a total stranger on a really busy sidewalk, grabbing them by the shoulders, and aggressively asking them to marry you.
That is horrifying and virtually guarantees a hostile rejection.
Right. It's startling and incredibly awkward. But the cold calling 2.0 approach is entirely different. It is like having a mutual friend, in this case, the forwarded email from the executive, introduce the two of you. And the initial goal isn't marriage. It's just grabbing a low-pressure cup of coffee to see if you even have anything in common.
It's exploratory.
Exactly. It's respectful. And it's built on a foundation of a warm introduction.
So the tactical imperative for you listening is to reframe your entire outbound strategy. Before your team ever picks up the phone to call a target prospect, Mandate that they secure some form of prior contact or internal referral.
And when that call happens, script it as a research call.
Yes. Train your team to ask open-ended questions about the prospect's business environment, establish the criteria for a mutual fit, and absolutely forbid them from launching into a feature dump pitch.
Now, to make this sophisticated research phase function effectively at scale, the chapter introduces a structural rule that I know from experience makes legacy sales managers incredibly anxious.
Ooh, this is a big one.
It is a highly controversial boundary, but it is the absolute linchpin of the entire predictable revenue system.
Right.
And that rule is, your account executives, your senior quota-carrying closers should never, ever make cold calls.
Never. This is the golden rule of specialization. And to fully grasp the mechanics of this, we need to clearly define the vital vocabulary of a specialized sales assembly line, exactly as it's laid out in the text.
Let's define the roles, yeah.
So you must break the sales process into distinct, isolated roles. First, you have the SDR, the sales development representative.
Right.
Their entire professional universe is outbound prospecting. They focus exclusively on generating new qualified opportunities from totally cold accounts using that referral email methodology.
They hand those opportunities off. They never, ever close deals.
Right. They are the scouts clearing the path. Then you have the AE, the account executive. This is your closer.
A person carrying the bag?
Exactly. Their sole responsibility is working active, qualified sales cycles. They take the well-researched opportunities handed to them by the SDR, they conduct the deep dive demos, they navigate the procurement process, and they negotiate the final contracts.
Got it. And is there a third role?
Yes. Finally, you have the MRR, the market response representative. They are your inbound qualification team.
So they only deal with people coming to you.
Right. They strictly handle leads that come to the company organically, people who fill out a form on the website, attend a webinar, or call a toll-free number.
Okay, I can literally hear traditional sales directors screaming at their speakers right now.
I know, it drives them crazy.
They're saying, why on earth would I fragment my team like that? A good, full-cycle salesperson should control their own destiny. If they want to eat, they should have to hunt.
The old school mentality.
Right. Why take prospecting away from the people who are best at selling?
That pushback is so common, but the text rigorously details why forcing an account executive to do cold outreach is a fatal operational error, and it breaks it down into 3 distinct areas of failure.
Okay, what's the first one?
First is the psychological friction. Simply put, closers hate prospecting.
They despise it.
Because the rhythm of prospecting is a slow, methodical burn of research and incremental progress. But the rhythm of closing is high-stakes, adrenaline-fueled negotiation.
Those are 2 totally different brain states.
Yeah, exactly. When you ask one brain to constantly switch between those 2 wildly different cognitive states, the rep will inevitably prioritize the active deals and ignore the prospecting.
It's task switching fatigue.
Yes. Second is the reality of the skill set itself. The skills that make someone a brilliant closer, like the ability to apply gentle pressure, navigate complex objections, and drive consensus among a buying committee, those do not translate to being a meticulous patient researcher who can write a perfectly concise referral email.
They're entirely different talents. You wouldn't ask your quarterback to also play defensive tackle.
Exactly. And the third reason is pure, brutal economics.
Let's talk about the money.
If you are paying a senior account executive a massive base salary because they know how to close 6-figure enterprise contracts, having them spend 4 hours a day hunting through LinkedIn for email addresses and living voicemails is a catastrophic misallocation of payroll.
You are literally using your most expensive resource to perform the lowest value, most administrative activity in the pipeline.
It makes no financial sense.
But the contamination of roles is what fascinates me the most here. It's not just about protecting the closers from the drudgery of prospecting. It's about enforcing strict boundaries across the entire floor.
Right, keeping the streams pure.
Yes. The text makes this brilliant observation about the danger of mixing inbound and outbound roles. If you have an SDR whose job is to do the difficult, proactive work of outbound hunting, and you suddenly give them a handful of warm inbound leads from the marketing website,
They will immediately become lazy.
instantly, they will abandon the hard work of crafting custom referral emails because it is just so much easier to call the people who already raised their hands.
Human nature will always default to the path of least resistance.
Always. You have to keep the streams absolutely pure or the outbound engine just stalls completely.
Strict specialization is the only operational guardrail against that instinct.
I always think of a high-end Michelin star restaurant. You do not see the master chef standing out on the sidewalk in an apron, aggressively handing out flyers to tourists, trying to get them to come inside.
Yo, you definitely don't.
Right. You have a dedicated marketing team to generate the buzz. You have a host at the front door to greet the guests, qualify their reservations, and seat them.
Right, the MRR.
You have a waiter to guide them through the menu. And the chef focuses purely on the highly specialized task of cooking an incredible meal. Sales must operate as an assembly line.
That's the perfect analogy.
Because if you force your chef to hand out flyers on the street, the food burns, the quality plummets, and the restaurant ultimately fails.
So the mandate derived from this chapter is absolute. Specialize your team. If you have more than one person responsible for revenue, you must break them into dedicated roles immediately.
Separate the finders from the closers.
Yes. Let your prospectors master the art of the research call, and let your closers focus 100% of their cognitive energy on managing the active pipeline. It's the only structural way to build a predictable, scalable machine.
Now, despite all this logical framework, I know there are listeners rolling their eyes. They're thinking, okay, this sounds like a wonderful academic theory, but does this highly specialized, plain text email approach actually survive first contact with reality?
It's a fair question.
So let's look at the concrete proofs provided in the text. Let's look at the actual Salesforce.com story.
Yeah, to understand the magnitude of what they accomplished, we really have to accurately set the historical scene here.
Okay, set the scene.
The year is 2002. Salesforce.com is a growing company doing about $25 million in revenue. They have dominated the small to medium business space, and now they are attempting this incredibly difficult maneuver of moving upmarket to sell massive contracts to enterprise-level organizations.
But the landscape in 2002 was entirely different than it is today.
Oh, completely. It's crucial to remember that back then, the entire concept of software as a service, SaaS, was wildly misunderstood by the enterprise market.
It's so funny to think about now, but the text points out that people literally thought Salesforce was an agency that rented out outsourced human salespeople.
Yes. They didn't even comprehend that it was cloud-based software.
They were trying to sell an invisible, misunderstood product to massive corporations using traditional marketing mailers and classic cold calls, and they were failing miserably.
The enterprise buyers were simply ignoring them. So the author proposes this radical cold calling 2.0 system to the executive team. He wants to stop dialing, start sending plain text referral emails to the C-suite, and hire junior reps just to do the research calls.
And management was profoundly skeptical.
Very skeptical, but they gave him exactly 4 months to run a pilot program to prove the model.
I want to highlight their skepticism here, because their concerns are exactly what any logical CEO would ask today.
What were their concerns?
Well, first they asked, will these pipeline deals actually close? Because getting a referral from a CEO is great, but a friendly introduction is not a closed contract. Are these real qualified buyers with budget or just people taking a polite meeting?
Right. Is this real pipeline or just vanity metrics?
Exactly. And second, they asked, can a regular junior salesperson actually execute this process? They were worried that it only worked for the author because he was a uniquely talented founder type and that it couldn't be scaled with normal employees.
Which is a huge concern when you're trying to build a repeatable machine. So, to answer those questions, they designed a really strict test.
What do they do?
They promoted a junior representative from within the company to join the pilot. They explicitly trained him on the exact wording of the referral email process, the psychology of the research calls, and the rigorous criteria required to qualify an opportunity before handing it off to an account executive.
So they basically cloned the process, not the person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the results were immediate and undeniable. That junior rep, following the system, quickly began generating the exact same high-quality opportunities as the author.
Wow.
Over the course of that single year, the opportunities generated by this new outbound system resulted in $1 million in new closed bookings.
Just from that pilot.
Just from the pilot. And because it was a subscription software model, the lifetime value of those contracts was estimated at over $3 million.
And what was the most important metric for management?
The cost. The cost to generate that $3 million in lifetime value was less than $150,000.
That is insane. That represents a staggering 3,000% return on investment.
The model was proven beyond a shadow of a doubt. It was so undeniably successful that Salesforce management rapidly scaled the SDR team from 2 people to 12 people in just 6 months.
And that laid the foundation for the massive enterprise growth that followed. But I look at that story, and the immediate pushback from a listener is going to be, sure, this system worked for Salesforce. They are a titan. They had the brand recognition. Of course, the CEO is going to reply to an email from Salesforce.
But that pushback completely ignores the context we just talked about.
Right.
In 2002, in the enterprise space, they were essentially unknowns pushing a weird new technology.
They weren't a titan yet.
Not at all. The constraints are exactly what proved the model. They lacked infinite marketing budgets, and they lacked brand recognition among Fortune 500 executives. They couldn't rely on their logo to get people to answer the phone.
So they were forced to engineer a flawless, authentic, friction-free communication process because process was the only leverage they had.
Exactly. It proves that a systemic, psychologically sound approach to outbound communication can overcome a severe lack of brand awareness.
So how does this translate to the audience listening today? Because the listeners might be running, say, a 20-person logistics company or a mid-sized marketing agency or a boutique consulting firm. Does this apply to them, or is this exclusively a playbook for venture-backed Silicon Valley tech startups?
The source text explicitly demands that readers do not let so-called reality or logical-sounding industry excuses stop them from implementing this.
So it works across the board.
Whether you are a scrappy tech startup or a 60-year-old legacy manufacturing business, the underlying principles of executive psychology, the friction of unwanted interruption, and the immense operational benefits of specialization, they still apply.
But they shouldn't just fire all their AEs tomorrow, right?
Oh, no. The text advises running a protected, highly measured pilot program exactly like Salesforce did. Don't upend your entire sales floor overnight. Take a few months. Isolate a small segment of your target market.
Run a test.
Test the plain text referral email strategy and the SDR to AE handoff before investing heavily in scaling a massive team. You have to prove the unit economics work for your specific niche.
Okay, let's dig into those unit economics because we need to establish the hard boundaries of this methodology. Can literally any business use cold calling 2.0?
The text provides some very strict mathematical criteria here. There are absolute boundaries.
Okay, what are they?
Well, first, the system is fundamentally designed for B2B companies' business-to-business sales. And critically, it requires your product or service to have a specific customer lifetime value, or LTV.
What's the number?
The text states that for this model to scale efficiently, your LTV really needs to be north of $10,000.
10,000.
The author does note that it can technically work if your LTV is over $5,000, but at that level, the profit margins become incredibly tight, and it is much harder to justify the human capital required.
So break down the math behind that LTV requirement for me. Why is $10,000 the magic threshold?
It basically comes down to the cost of human specialization. Having a dedicated, intelligent human being acting as a sales development representative is an expensive proposition.
Because they aren't just reading a script.
Right. They are spending hours conducting custom research, mapping out corporate structures, sending personalized emails, and having in-depth consultative qualification calls. You are paying a base salary, commissions, software licenses, and management overhead for that individual.
It's a premium investment.
It's a highly effective process, but yes, it is a premium investment. If an SDR generates 10 qualified deals a month and the account executive closes 2 of them, the revenue from those 2 closed deals has to pay for the SDR's salary, the AE's commission, the cost to actually deliver the product, and still leave a healthy profit margin for the business.
So if you are selling a low-cost item, the math just collapses.
The revenue doesn't cover the cost of the specialized labor. But if your product is a high-value enterprise solution, the ROI is massive.
I use an analogy of fuel efficiency to explain this LTV threshold.
Okay.
Think of this specialized SDR process as a massive heavy-duty freight truck. If you are selling a $50 widget to small businesses, paying an SDR to do custom research and outreach is like using that massive gas-guzzling freight truck to drive across town to deliver a single pizza.
You'll successfully deliver the pizza, but
the cost of the diesel fuel alone will bankrupt your restaurant. The mechanism works, but the math is suicidal. You need high-ticket items, the massive pallets of enterprise deals, to fuel the cold calling 2.0 engine profitably.
that perfectly illustrates the economic constraint. And it's also important to note that the text confirms this methodology works for both products and services, but it introduces a vital caveat for service-based businesses.
Right, because selling a piece of software is very different than selling a consulting engagement.
Totally different. Selling services requires the organization to spend significantly more time rigorously defining their ideal customer profile, or ICP.
Why is that harder for services?
Well, when you sell a software product, you can often demonstrate hard, objective features that solve a technical problem. But services are intangible. They are often sold based on trust, relationships, and nuance.
Because the offering is less concrete.
Exactly. So your targeting has to be exponentially more precise. You have to know exactly which subset of executives is feeling the specific pain your service alleviates.
Are there other examples in the text outside of Salesforce, just to give some concrete validation?
Yes, the text highlights the success of other companies that adopted this framework. For example, a company called Responses implemented the Cold Calling 2.0 system and witnessed a 300% increase in pipeline generated per SDR within a mere 4 months.
300% in 4 months.
That is a staggering jump in human productivity, and it proves the methodology is completely transferable outside of its origin point.
So the actionable takeaway for you as a business leader listening right now is to sit down today and calculate your average customer's lifetime value.
Look at the hard data.
Look at the data. If your average B2B client brings in north of $10,000 over the lifespan of their relationship with you, and you are still relying on your account executives to blindly dial prospects, you are leaving massive amounts of predictable revenue on the table.
You are actively hindering your own growth by not implementing a dedicated, specialized outbound SDR utilizing this referral email methodology.
We have covered a massive amount of operational and psychological ground today. So let's pull all these threads together into a unified framework. What Chapter 2 of Predictable Revenue ultimately proves is that the soul of modern, scalable B2B sales isn't about aggression.
No, not at all.
It isn't about sheer volume, and it is certainly not about manipulation.
It is the absolute antithesis of those things.
It is entirely about empathy. It's about understanding the crushing demands on an executive's time and communicating in a way that respects that friction. It's about taking the time to do deep, targeted research before you ever speak to a prospect.
And internally, it is about extreme specialization within your team structure.
Right. By shifting your initial outreach from blind, disruptive cold calls to highly targeted plain text referral emails, you align your strategy with how modern executives actually prefer to delegate and communicate.
And by ruthlessly separating your prospectors from your closers, you ensure that every single person on your revenue team is operating purely in their zone of genius.
You take a miserable, inefficient, high-turnover grind, and you engineer it into a predictable, high-yield machine.
And if we look forward at the actual execution of this system, it raises an incredibly important operational question.
What's that?
Well, we have established how to find the right people using the psychology of the desperation experiment emails. And we have established why you desperately need specialized roles to handle the different phases of the pipeline. But once that C-suite executive actually replies to your plain text email and gives you an internal referral, what exactly do you do next?
That is the moment of truth, right? You have the golden lead. Now what?
Exactly. How does the SDR conduct that very first research call without accidentally slipping back into the old habits of a feature dump sales pitch?
How do they politely disqualify a prospect without burning a bridge with the CEO who referred them?
And critically, how do you smoothly pass the baton from the SDR to the account executive without the prospect feeling like they're starting completely over?
That entirely different science of tactical execution is waiting for you to explore in the next phase of Cold Calling 2.0.
It is the massive difference between mapping out the path and actually having the discipline to walk it.
But remember, as we discussed at the very beginning of this deep dive, you might feel like stripping away your team's ability to just pick up the phone and dial for dollars is a terrifying constraint.
It's a huge leap of faith.
It might feel like you're throwing away your most basic fundamental tool. But sometimes, taking away the dynamite is the only way to force the fisherman to finally sit down, study the water, and learn how to actually cast a line.
Have you ever felt that soul-crushing dread of picking up the phone to call someone who doesn't know you, doesn't want to talk to you, and is, probably going to hang up on you before you even finish your sentence?
Oh, I mean, it is a very specific, visceral kind of anxiety. The sweaty palms, the staring blankly at the numbers on the screen.
Yeah, just hoping it goes to voicemail.
Exactly. That secret, desperate hope that the line just clicks straight through so you don't actually have to, speak to another human being.
Exactly. It's the universal nightmare of the cold call. But today, I'm going to make a very bold statement for everyone listening. Traditional cold calling is dead.
Completely dead.
It is buried. And the alternative we are going to explore today isn't just less painful. It's mathematically proven to be infinitely more profitable.
And we aren't just speaking theoretically here,
Right.
or throwing around motivational jargon.
No, not at all.
We are dissecting a very specific, historically proven methodology that completely upended how the tech industry, well, how they think about growth entirely.
Right. So welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are focusing entirely on Chapter 3 of Aaron Ross's groundbreaking book, Predictable Revenue, specifically the chapter titled Executing Cold Calling 2.0.
Which is such a great title.
It really is. In this deep dive, you are about to learn the exact step-by-step blueprint that was used to add $100 million in predictable revenue to Salesforce's bottom line in just a few years.
100 million, just incredible.
Right. And this matters deeply for anyone in business, sales, or entrepreneurship, whether you're watching on YouTube trying to scale your first startup or, you're a seasoned executive, because this framework completely transforms lead generation.
It really does.
It takes it from this unpredictable, stressful, burnout-inducing hustle and turns it into a highly scalable, stress-free machine.
Yeah, and machine is really the operative word there. What we're talking about is a fundamental paradigm shift. We are moving away from the idea of sales as this mystical art form.
The born salesperson.
Exactly. The idea that it depends entirely on the individual charisma of a born salesperson. We're moving towards sales as a specialized manufacturing process. But before we can even talk about the gears and the funnels of that machine, we have to talk about the concrete foundation.
Because you can't build a highly efficient factory on a swamp.
You really can't.
Okay, let's unpack this. What exactly does that foundation look like? Because the source material doesn't just offer suggestions. It is incredibly strict about the prerequisites a business must have in place before they even attempt this cold calling 2.0 system.
It is remarkably strict, yeah.
Yep.
And for very solid economic and operational reasons. The first prerequisite is that a business must have at least one person who is 100% dedicated to prospecting.
Not 50%.
Not 50%. Not a founder doing it, when they have some free time on Tuesday afternoons. 100% dedicated. Yeah. And the second prerequisite is having a proper Salesforce automation system, or SFA. Most people today just call this a CRM, like Salesforce or HubSpot. We have to move entirely away from messy spreadsheets, sticky notes on monitors.
Oh man, the whiteboard.
The whiteboards, right?
Yeah.
It needs to be a centralized, trackable database. And the third prerequisite, which is often a tough pill to swallow for early-stage companies, is that your product should ideally have a lifetime customer value of at least $10,000.
Okay, wait, I have to jump in here with a pushback.
Sure.
Because if I'm a small business owner listening to this right now, I'm probably looking at that $10,000 lifetime value requirement and thinking, well, I should just turn this off. What if someone has a great software product that costs like $100 a month? Does this entire predictable revenue system just get thrown out the window?
That's a vital question. And it's a very common point of confusion. If we connect this to the bigger picture of unit economics, the process itself, the psychology of the emails, the specialization, the discovery frameworks, that all still works perfectly for smaller amounts.
Okay.
Because the mechanics of how you generate interest are fundamentally human, right? So they scale down. The issue is purely operational profitability.
Meaning what it actually costs to run the machine itself.
Precisely. Think about the overhead. When you're paying a full-time dedicated sales development representative, an SDRT, you are paying a competitive base salary, let's say $60,000 to $80,000.
Yeah.
Then you add their commission structure, their benefits, their software licenses, the data tools they need. They're an expensive resource. If your product's lifetime value is only $1,000, that single SDR has to generate a massive, almost physically impossible volume of closed deals just for the company to break even on their salary.
Oh, I see. The math just doesn't work.
Exactly. But when the lifetime value is $10,000 or $50,000, the unit economics suddenly click into place. An SDR might only need to generate 1 or 2 closed deals a month to be massively profitable. The ROI on that hired salesperson becomes highly predictable.
That clarifies it perfectly. So it's not that the tactics fail, it's that the math of employing a full-time prospector fails unless you have the margin to support them.
Exactly.
So if you're a solopreneur doing the prospecting yourself, run with these tactics. But if you want to hire a team to do it, check your margins.
Definitely check your margins. But there's another foundational element the source text mandates before we get into the tactics, and this one is more psychological than structural.
Okay, what is it?
It's the attitude of experimentation.
Yes. The book is very clear that this isn't a rigid copy-paste manual where you blindly follow a script, hit enter, and money just falls out of the sky.
Right, because no two businesses are exactly alike. Your market maturity, your specific buyer psychology, your product's nuance, it all requires tweaking. The author points out a very dangerous behavioral trap here.
Which is what?
Well, under pressure, executives and business owners tend to retreat to what they know. When quarterly revenue is down, the panic sets in, and the instinct is for a sales manager to walk onto the floor and yell, make more calls, work harder, double your dial limits.
Which is completely counterproductive if the system itself is flawed.
Right. Trying to get salespeople to just work harder at a broken system is the definition of insanity. It just accelerates the burnout.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to experiment, to A/B test your messaging, to fail small, and to continuously refine the process until it fits your specific reality.
It's sort of like bailing water out of a sinking boat faster and faster instead of just taking a moment to patch the leak.
That's a perfect analogy.
So, if you are looking to implement this, your first move is an internal audit. Do you have a real CRM? Or are you running your business on a chaotic Google Sheet? Do your product margins actually support a dedicated prospecting role? And most importantly, are you ready to test and iterate rather than just demanding more brute force effort?
Exactly. Which leads us perfectly into the most critical structural shift in this entire methodology. If someone only takes one overarching concept away from this deep dive, it should absolutely be this one.
Oh, I know exactly where you're going. The death of the do-it-all sales rep.
Yes. The traditional antiquated model of sales is that you hire a hunter. This one individual is expected to dig up their own leads from scratch, make the agonizing cold calls, qualify the prospects, give the dazzling product presentations, negotiate the complex contracts, close the deal.
It's exhausting just listening to it.
And then, in some terrible setups, they even have to manage the customer success afterward.
It's like running a high-end restaurant and forcing your head chef, who is arguably your most expensive, highly skilled resource, to also act as the host greeting guests at the door.
Right.
Like they have to seat the guests, pour their tap water, and take their coats. The food in the kitchen will burn, the guests at the door will be ignored, and your incredibly expensive chef is going to quit out of sheer frustration because they aren't doing what they do best.
That is a brilliant way to visualize it. It highlights both the economic and the psychological disaster of the traditional sales model. Let's look at the psychology first. Account executives, the closers, generally hate cold prospecting.
They really do.
They loathe it. They are psychologically wired for the thrill of the pitch, the strategic negotiation, the dopamine hit of the close. Cold prospecting is a grind. It is an exercise in repetitive rejection.
Yeah, it's brutal.
It's a completely different skill set that requires a different daily rhythm, a different kind of resilience, and a completely different mindset.
But wait, let me play devil's advocate for a second.
Go for it.
Isn't the closer usually the most experienced person on the team? They know the product inside and out. They know all the objections. Why wouldn't I want my smartest, most capable person on the front lines making those initial calls?
Because of the economic concept of opportunity cost and, well, the reality of human behavior. Even if an account executive is genuinely good at cold calling, the moment they get 2 or 3 hot, qualified leads in their pipeline, what do?
They completely start prospecting.
Exactly.
They focus all their energy on closing those open deals because that's what pays their massive commission checks.
Exactly. And when they stop prospecting to focus on closing, they create the classic agonizing roller coaster of sales revenue that destroys companies.
Right, the feast or famine cycle.
Yes. They have a massive month of closed deals everyone celebrates. But because they spent the last 30 days closing and 0 days prospecting, the pipeline for the next month is completely empty.
So the following month is a disaster.
Revenue plummets. Panic ensues. They spend a frantic month doing nothing but cold prospecting to rebuild the pipeline, which leads to a good month, which leads to another empty pipeline.
Yeah.
There is zero predictability. It is a nightmare for cash flow.
So the solution presented in Cold Calling 2.0 is total uncompromising specialization. You separate your sales roles into highly specific functions.
Yes. You create distinct, specialized buckets. First, your closers, the account executives. Under this model, they should absolutely not be prospecting cold accounts. Period.
You take that off their plate entirely.
Completely. Their sole job is to take qualified opportunities that are handed to them and expertly guide them through the negotiation to the finish line.
And to feed them those qualified opportunities, you create the second bucket, the dedicated sales development reps, or SDRs.
Right. The SDRs are the specialized hunters. Their only job is to map out accounts, find the right contacts, generate interest, and qualify those outbound leads. They don't negotiate, they don't close, they just prospect, qualify, and pass the baton.
But the book also details a third bucket, which I found really interesting. The market response reps.
Yeah.
Their only job is to qualify inbound leads, people who downloaded a white paper from your website or attended a webinar or filled out a contact us form.
Right, yeah.
But why separate the inbound from the outbound? If an SDR is already good at qualifying leads, shouldn't one person just handle all the leads, inbound and outbound?
What's fascinating here is the psychological friction of context switching. An inbound lead is already warm, they know your company, they actively raise their hand and ask for information. The conversation is entirely different.
It's easier, basically.
It is. It's a reactive, consultative, almost customer service-oriented motion. Outbound prospecting, however, is proactive and highly disruptive. You are interrupting a busy executive's day to introduce a completely new concept they weren't even thinking about.
They are two totally different gears in the brain.
Exactly. And human nature dictates that we always take the path of least resistance. If you give a single rep a mix of warm inbound leads and freezing cold outbound targets, they will spend 100% of their time meticulously working the easy inbound leads.
And completely ignore the difficult, rejection-heavy outbound work.
Yes, the outbound pipeline will instantly dry up. You absolutely must protect the outbound function by isolating it. Give your SDRs zero inbound distractions so they have no choice but to hunt.
That makes total sense. You are engineering an environment where they can't hide from the hard work. And the text note's an ideal ratio for the setup, right? One dedicated SDR supporting roughly 2 to 5 account executives.
Correct. Though if you are selling massive, highly complex enterprise deals, say multi-million-dollar software deployments, it could even be a 1-to-1 ratio and still be highly profitable.
Wow, okay.
The key mechanism is that the closers are being constantly predictably fed by a dedicated hunter. From an economic standpoint, making your highest cost resource your AE your lowest value activity, like dialing cold numbers, is a catastrophic waste of capital.
It goes back to your analogy. You are paying head chef wages for someone to sweep the floors outside the restaurant.
Precisely.
So if you are managing a sales team, look at your current workflow. If your closers are spending their valuable time digging through LinkedIn trying to find email addresses, you need to specialize your roles immediately. Let the hunters hunt, let the closers close.
And once you have those specialized hunters, the SDRs, sitting at their desks, ready to work, they have to know exactly who they are hunting. They can't just start dialing numbers from a phone book. Which brings us out of the foundational theory and into the actual 5-step funnel of cold calling 2.0.
Let's get into the mechanics. Step 1 and step 2 of the funnel. Targeting with absolute sniper precision.
Sniper precision is the right way to think about it.
Step 1 is getting crystal clear on your ideal customer profile, or ICP. And step 2 is building the actual list of humans you are going to contact.
And the text argues quite forcefully that step 1, defining that ICP, is the single most important exercise in this entire process.
Really? The single most important?
Absolutely. It's where the war is won or lost. Most companies fail before they even send a single email because they target the wrong companies, the wrong titles within those companies, or they suffer from the delusion that their product is for everyone.
Okay, let's unpack this. What actually makes a good ICP? Because I feel like if you ask most B2B companies who their target is, they give you something incredibly generic. They say, our ICP is Fortune 5,000 companies in the tech and manufacturing sectors.
Which is basically useless.
Right. That's not really an ICP, is it?
Not at all. That is merely a broad demographic category. It gives your SDR almost nothing to work with. A true ideal customer profile goes layers deeper. It's not just about knowing the target company's revenue or employee headcount. It is about defining the ideal human contact within that company and understanding their daily reality.
Give me an example.
So, a lazy ICP is the VP of sales. A brilliant, actionable ICP, as outlined in the text, is much richer, it sounds like. A VP of sales, who is new to their role, specifically less than 90 days in, who is highly process-oriented, reports directly to a data-driven CEO, and is under immense pressure to make an immediate impact.
Whoa, that is incredibly specific. How does an SDR even know all of that before they call?
Through rigorous account research, utilizing platforms like LinkedIn to track job changes, reading company press releases, and understanding industry triggers. But more importantly, you need that specificity because you have to understand their core psychological and operational challenges. Why is this specific GP stressed?
Right, what keeps them awake at 2 a.m.?
Precisely. The text gives the example of this VP's specific challenge. They cannot give accurate revenue forecasts to their CEO because their current sales team is using 5 different tracking methods, and the data is garbage.
Oh, okay.
When your SDR knows that, their messaging becomes devastatingly effective. When they reach out, they aren't talking about software features. They are talking about the VP's inability to look competent in the upcoming board meeting. You aren't selling a CRM. You're selling the ability to confidently report accurate numbers to the CEO.
I love that distinction. You're not selling vitamins, you're selling a highly specific painkiller for a highly specific nightmare.
Exactly.
And once you have that incredibly tight, psychologically deep ICP, you move to step 2, which is building the actual list of prospects. The text mentions using databases like data.com or Hoover's-Dashito, although today that might be ZoomInfo or Apollo.
Right, it's a modern equivalent.
But it gives a massive flashing red light warning against just dumping random contacts from these databases into your outreach funnel.
Yes. Because when you buy access to a database with 50 million contacts, the temptation is always quantity over quality.
I want to push back on this, though, because I think a lot of people struggle with this logic. Isn't limiting your list leaving money on the table?
How do you mean?
I mean, if I have a database of 10,000 contacts and sending an email costs me literally $0.00, why wouldn't I just email all 10,000? Even if only 1% are a good fit, that's still 100 leads. Why not just cast the widest net possible?
It is the most common trap in outbound sales, and it fundamentally misunderstands the bottleneck of the system. The expert analysis here relies on the strict economic concept of opportunity cost. Yes, the digital transmission of the email costs $0, but the responses cost time.
Right.
And time is your SDR's most finite, expensive resource.
Because it's a human being managing the inbox, not a robot.
Exactly. Let me use a technical analogy.
Right.
Blasting thousands of untargeted emails is basically launching a DDoS attack, a distributed denial of service attack on your own sales team.
A DDoS attack on yourself.
Wow. Yeah. Think about it. If you blast 10,000 poor fit prospects, your SDR doesn't just get silence. They get hundreds of confused responses, out-of-office replies, people asking, "What does your company do?" People asking to be removed from the list, and people who might be mildly interested but have zero budget.
Oh, man. So it just creates a mountain of administrative work.
Exactly. Your highly paid SDR now has to spend hours, days, reading, analyzing, and replying to that flood of garbage traffic. They set up calls, they do 30-minute discovery sessions, only to realize the person they are talking to is completely unqualified.
Wow. So you flood your own server, so to speak, with low-quality traffic, and while your SDR is busy wading through the garbage, they completely miss the actual high-value buyers.
Precisely. Time spent chasing a bad fit is time stolen from researching and closing a perfect fit. It creates massive noise in the machine. You must filter your lists ruthlessly.
So no exceptions.
No exceptions. If a contact in a database does not match the strict criteria of your ICP, if they aren't the right title, at the right size company, in the right region, they do not go into the outbound funnel. Period. Better to have a list of 100 perfect targets than 10,000 mediocre ones.
That is a powerful paradigm shift. In prospecting, less is actually more because the less is highly concentrated. If you're building a list, don't focus on how big you can make it. Focus on how exclusive you can make it.
Absolutely. And once you have that hyper-targeted, pristine, highly researched list of ideal contacts, you're finally ready to initiate contact. Which brings us to step 3.
Here is where it gets really interesting, because the big, somewhat ironic reveal of Chapter 3, the chapter titled Executing Cold Calling 2.0, is that the actual calling part is mostly emails.
It is a brilliant piece of misdirection by the author. If your SDRs are sitting in a bullpen, dialing random phone numbers, waiting for a confused executive to answer, and then launching into a frantic 30-second elevator pitch while the executive wonders who they are.
And how they got their number.
Exactly. If you're doing that, you are doing the system completely wrong. That is cold calling 1.0.
I want to dive into this fascinating A/B test from the source material that perfectly illustrates why the old way is dead.
Well, this is a great story.
Right. So the author, Aaron Ross, was at Salesforce trying to crack the code on how to reach C-suite executives in massive Fortune 5,000 companies. These are people who have layers of gatekeepers. He tried the traditional digital method first, sending 100 classic salesy emails. You know exactly the type of email I'm talking about.
Oh, definitely. Heavy HTML formatting, lots of corporate graphics.
Yes. A polished logo at the top, bold text highlighting a long list of software features, and essentially functioning as a digital brochure screaming, "Buy my stuff."
We all receive those constantly,
Mhm.
and we all develop a complete blindness to them.
Exactly. The response rate on those 100 highly polished HTML sales emails to C-level executives was exactly 0%.
Literally zero.
Total failure. So he pivots to an attitude of experimentation. He writes a totally different kind of email. He calls it the short and sweet email, and it breaks every rule of traditional marketing.
Every single one.
It is plain text, no graphics, no bolding, no embedded videos. It just looks like a regular, boring email from a regular person. And the content, it doesn't sell the Salesforce product at all. It doesn't even mention features. It just asks one simple question. Who is the best point of contact for this specific topic at your company?
It's so simple.
He sends 100 of those plaintext emails to the same caliber of C-suite executive.
And the result was paradigm shifting.
A massive 10% response rate. 10 out of 100 unreachable C-suite executives actually replied, and half of them actively referred him downward to the exact right person in their organization.
This raises an incredibly important question, though. Why does this plain text non-sales email work so effectively?
Yeah, what's the psychology there?
If we dissect the underlying mechanics here, we have to look at the environment of the modern buyer. Buyers, especially executives, are absolutely sick of being sold to. They are inundated with pitches. When an executive opens a long, graphically heavy HTML email, two things happen.
Okay.
Technically, it often gets flagged by corporate firewalls or routed to a spam or promotional folder. But psychologically, the moment their eyes register the graphics and the formatting, their brain immediately categorizes it as sales pitch. It triggers a deeply ingrained defensive reflex. They delete it before they even read the first sentence.
Especially on a mobile phone.
Oh, absolutely.
The book points out that these executives are spending half their day reading emails on a small screen while running between meetings. If it takes 3 thumb swipes just to scroll to the bottom of your email, you are dead. They don't have the time or the cognitive bandwidth.
Precisely. The short and sweet plain text email works because it bypasses that defensive reflex entirely. Visually, it looks like an internal memo from a colleague or a quick note from a peer. It doesn't look like marketing. And more importantly, the ask of the email is incredibly low friction. You are not asking a busy CEO to evaluate a complex software platform or find $100,000 in their budget. You are simply asking them for a name.
Which is easy for them.
Very easy.
Mm.
Executives are naturally inclined to delegate.
Right.
It is what they do all day.
Yeah.
So when you ask a CEO, who is the person in charge of sales operations? It's very natural for them to just hit reply from their phone and type, talk to Dave in operations.
And once they hit send on that, I mean, it is pure magic for the SDR. Because now you don't cold call Dave in operations. You email Dave and you CC the CEO who just referred you, and your subject line is essentially CEO referral.
That is the secret weapon.
And you say, "Hi, Dave. Your CEO suggested I reach out to you regarding."
And Dave has absolutely no choice but to respond because his boss's boss just put him on an email thread. The response rate skyrockets, and fundamentally, it is no longer a cold call. It is a warm internal referral. You have successfully borrowed the authority of the executive to bypass the gatekeepers and force the door open.
That is just brilliant leverage. But there is a very specific operational cadence to this that we need to clarify. You don't just load up a mass email tool with 10,000 short and sweet emails and press send.
Right, and this goes back to our DDoS analogy earlier. The source text is very careful about the volume of outreach. The ultimate goal of this machine is predictable, manageable revenue. If you blast 1,000 short and sweet emails and get 100 executive responses in one day, your SDR will be completely overwhelmed.
They drown in replies.
They won't be able to research those 100 companies quickly enough. They will send generic replies, drop balls, forget to follow up, and ultimately ruin the golden opportunities the CEO just handed them.
The cadence the book suggests is almost shockingly low volume. It recommends a rep send just 50 to 100 highly targeted emails a day. That's it.
Just 50 to 100.
And you avoid sending on Mondays because people are stressed and catching up on the weekend backlog. And you avoid Fridays because mentally they are already checking out. You aim for a manageable 5 to 10 responses a day.
But this naturally leads to the question. If an SDR is only sending 50 short plain text emails a day, which takes maybe an hour, what on earth are they doing with the other 7 hours of their workday?
Right. Or they just like playing ping pong in the break room.
Far from it.
Yeah.
The rest of their day is spent on deep account mapping. They are reading 10K financial reports of the companies they are targeting. They are mapping out the organizational charts to figure out exactly who the CEO and the VP of operations are.
That takes a lot of time.
It takes hours. They are customizing those 50 emails so that when they ask for the referral, they are referencing a specific recent company event. It is highly strategic, sniper-level research. That is why the volume is low. It requires intense preparation.
So, if you are writing outbound emails right now, your immediate move is brutal but necessary. Strip the HTML, strip the company logo from your signature, strip the bold fonts, the bullet points, and the long pitches. Write a simple 2-sentence plain text email asking a high-level executive for a referral to the right person on their team. Make it look like it was quickly typed by a human from a smartphone.
And be radically honest while you do it. The text explicitly warns against using cheap, deceptive tricks,
Like what?
like putting "re" in
Yeah.
the subject line to pretend you were replying to a previous thread that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
If you start a professional relationship with a lie just to get an open, you destroy the trust before you even begin. Executives are smart. They see right through it.
Okay, let's move down the funnel. The SDR has sent the carefully crafted plain text email. The CEO has replied and referred them to Dave. The SDR reaches out to Dave, leverages the CEO's name, and Dave agrees to a 15-minute introductory phone call. We are now finally at step 4.
Step 4. Selling the dream. This is commonly known in the industry as the discovery call. And this is the exact moment where the vast majority of untrained, overeager salespeople completely self-destruct and lose the deal.
Because they finally get someone on the phone after days of research, the adrenaline kicks in, and they immediately vomit their entire product pitch all over the prospect.
Oh, it happens all the time.
Hi, Dave. So glad we connected. We have these amazing features. We are the industry leader. We just won this award. Let me tell you about our dashboard.
Exactly. It's the show up and throw up method.
Yeah.
They make the conversation entirely about their business, their product, and their quota. But the rule from the text regarding this initial call is incredibly strict, and I absolutely love the blunt phrasing. If the salesperson is talking more than 30% of the time on a discovery call, they need to shut up.
30%. That is a shockingly low number. That means for a 15-minute call, the salesperson is only speaking for 4.5 minutes total. The prospect is talking for over 10 minutes.
Because the goal of a discovery call is not to sell anything. It is not to pitch features. The sole goal is to listen, to aggressively uncover the prospect's true operational pain points, and to help them verbally envision a solution. The focus of the call must be entirely on the prospect's business, their fears, and their goals.
I love how the text points out the psychological nuance here, noting that true pain points often disguise themselves as desired solutions.
Oh, that's a brilliant insight from the book.
Let's use our earlier HR software example. An SDR gets on the phone and the prospect says, "We are looking to buy a new marketing automation system." A bad 1.0 salesperson immediately says, "Great, our marketing automation system has these 10 features and costs this much."
They act as an order taker.
Right. But a great 2.0 salesperson hears that desired solution and asks, why? What is systematically failing in your current process that makes you believe buying a massive new marketing system is the only answer?
That is the crucial difference between order taking and consultative selling. You have to peel back the layers of the onion. The prospect might realize they don't actually need a massive new system. They just need a better way to route the leads they already have. You have to uncover the root cause.
Right.
And to do this successfully, without sounding like a robotic telemarketer reading down a list of interrogation questions, the book introduces a fantastic framework called the AAA call planning method.
Yes. Let's unpack the AAA. Because traditional scripts are dead. Prospects can hear the inflection of you reading a script a mile away, and it instantly destroys any authentic rapport.
It really does.
So instead of a script, the SDR takes 5 minutes before they dial Dave's number to define 3 specific things. First, what answers do you want alone by the end of the call? Second, what attitudes do you want the prospect to feel during the call? And third, what actions should logically occur next?
It is a brilliant mental map for a conversation. Instead of saying to yourself, I need to ask questions 1 through 5 in order, you frame it as, I need to understand the true bottleneck in their current reporting structure. I want Dave to feel like I am an insightful, peer-level consultant who genuinely understands his industry, not a pushy vendor desperate for a commission. And the action I want is for Dave to agree to a scheduled 60-minute technical deep dive with my account executive for next Tuesday.
So you have a destination in mind.
Exactly. If you know your ultimate destination and the emotional tone you want to set, you can let the conversation flow naturally. You just steer it gently back on course when it drifts.
And what about when Dave inevitably doesn't answer the phone for that scheduled call and you hit his voicemail? Because the book has some fascinating insights on the psychology of leaving voicemails.
It does. Because, again, the goal isn't what most salespeople think it is. The goal of the voicemail isn't necessarily to persuade them to call you back. In the modern corporate world, executives rarely return cold voicemails from unknown numbers.
I never do.
Right. The real goal is to use the voicemail to be a disarming, warm human voice that explicitly references the email you just sent, thereby prompting them to go back to their inbox and reply to the email. The email is the primary channel, the voicemail is the assist.
Right. It's a multi-channel nudge, and you have to sound like a normal person, not a corporate robot doing a broadcast. The text suggests leaving a voicemail with the exact same casual demeanor and pacing you would use if you were leaving a message for a friend. Hi, Dave. Aaron here. I just sent you a quick email a few days ago regarding the CEO's note. Would love a quick courtesy reply when you have a second. Thanks.
That's perfect.
It's incredibly low pressure. It doesn't ask for a callback, just an email reply.
Though there is a somewhat controversial, mysterious voicemail tactic mentioned in the book.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
It sounds like this. Hi, Dave. It's Aaron. I'm free at 3 p.m. today. Call me back. The text notes that structurally, this gets a very high callback rate because human curiosity is powerful.
Right. They're like, wait, who is Aaron?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it comes with a massive warning. It can severely backfire with cold prospects. Because when Dave calls back, worried it's an urgent internal issue, and realizes it's a salesperson who purposefully withheld context to trick him into calling, he feels manipulated. The trust is instantly broken.
Oof. Yeah, I would hate that.
That tactic is much better reserved for people you already have an established, friendly relationship with.
Integrity is key at every step. You can't hack trust. So if you're making calls today, your goal is simple. On your next prospect call, force yourself to listen 70% of the time. Map out your AAA goals beforehand, answers, attitudes, actions, and physically throw away your robotic script. Ask deep questions and let them talk about their favorite subject, their own business problems.
Which brings us to the final, most operationally delicate hurdle in the entire cold calling 2.0 system.
The handoff.
Exactly. The SDR has done their job perfectly. They found the perfect target. They secured the executive referral. They conducted a masterful discovery call where they listened 70% of the time. They uncovered that the prospect has a massive operational pain point. They have the budget to fix it, and they are eager to see a full product demonstration. It is time for step 5, passing the baton.
The moment of truth. Transferring this beautiful, highly qualified prospect from the hunting SDR over to the closing account executive. And this handoff has to be flawless. It can't just be a messy forwarded email saying, hey, talk to Dave, he's interested. Ideally, it's a hot transfer right on the phone or a firmly scheduled, mutually agreed upon calendar invite with an agenda attached.
But here is the massive catch, and this is arguably the most important operational rule in the book. This is the mechanism that ensures absolute quality control across the entire predictable revenue machine.
Okay, I'm listening.
The SDR does not get credit for generating that opportunity and therefore does not receive their commission bonus just for setting the calendar meeting.
Wait, let me make sure I understand this. The SDR does the grueling account mapping, writes the perfect text email, secures the referral, runs the discovery call, successfully gets the prospect to agree to a 1-hour meeting with the closer, puts it on the calendar, and they don't get the credit for it yet. Why is that secondary double check so vital? It seems kind of unfair to the SDR.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture of human incentives and organizational behavior, you have to remember the golden rule of sales management. People will optimize for whatever behavior gets them paid.
That is very true.
If an SDR gets paid their commission simply for setting a meeting on an AE's calendar, they will inevitably start setting meetings with anyone who has a pulse.
Right, because why wouldn't they? If the goal is just meetings booked, quality doesn't matter to their paycheck.
Exactly. They will push unqualified, completely uninterested people or companies with zero budget onto the account executive's calendar just to hit their monthly quota. The closers will spend their valuable days doing exhaustive product demos for people who have absolutely no intention of ever buying. The AE's morale will plummet, their win rate will crash, and most dangerously, the AE will completely stop trusting the SDR team. They will view SDR meetings as a waste of time.
Oh, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
It creates massive friction and resentment between the hunters and the closers, which breaks the entire factory assembly line.
Exactly. So the ironclad rule is the SDR only gets credit for generating the opportunity after the account executive conducts the first meeting, speaks with the prospect, and formally requalifies them.
The closer has to validate it.
Yes, the closer has the ultimate power to validate that the lead meets the strict criteria, that the prospect actually has real pain, a viable timeline, and the authority to purchase.
This auditing process forces the SDRs to aggressively self-regulate their quality. It totally prevents them from passing over garbage leads just to hit a number. And like you said, it creates immense, unshakable trust. The closer knows that if the SDR goes through the trouble of putting a meeting on their calendar, it has been rigorously vetted and is a legitimate, high-quality at-bat.
And to manage all of this complex movement, thousands of accounts moving from cold to research to discovered to handed off the text details, a CRM management framework it calls the account status assembly line.
Because remember, we are operating a manufacturing plant.
Exactly. You cannot just have leads floating around in the digital ether of a database. Every single account must have a clear, definitive status or a bin, and there are strict rules for moving between them.
Yes, the bins. Let's walk through them in detail because this is the actual operational reality of how you configure your CRM software to make this work. Bin 1 is the starting point, cold. This means there is no activity, the account is completely unresponsive, or it's just raw data sitting in the system.
Right.
Bin 2 is working. This means the SDR has claimed the account, they are actively researching the 10K, they are mapping the org chart, or they are sending those preliminary short and sweet emails. Bin 3 is the big one, qualified. This is the golden ticket. This means the prospect has been fully vetted, the discovery call happened, and the baton is officially passed to the AE.
But then there are the critical maintenance bins, which are often ignored by amateur teams.
Oh yeah, bin 5 is nurture.
Yes, nurture. These are accounts where the discovery call went well, the prospect loved the product, but maybe they just signed a 2-year contract with a competitor, or their budget got frozen until next Q3. They are dead opportunities right now, but they will be highly valuable in the future. They need to be systematically checked on, not forgotten. And finally, bin 6 is avoid.
I found the avoid bin absolutely fascinating. Why do you need a specific, dedicated CRM status telling your SDRs to explicitly avoid a company?
Because as your company scales from 10 employees to 100, and your database grows to tens of thousands of records, it gets incredibly messy. The left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. The absolute last thing you want is your eager, newly hired SDR sending a generic, cold, introductory prospecting email to a company that has already been a loyal, paying customer for 5 years.
Oh my gosh, that would be so embarrassing.
Or worse, prospecting a company that is currently in a massive million-dollar legal dispute with your firm. Sending a cold email to those accounts makes your entire company look completely incompetent and disorganized. The avoid bin is a permanent red flag that protects your current clients and sensitive accounts from being treated like strangers by the outbound team.
So if you are an operations leader or a sales manager, your homework is to create strict, totally objective criteria for what constitutes a qualified lead in your business. Write it down and ensure the closer has the absolute power to validate that lead before the hunter gets paid. And then clean up your CRM. Configure those assembly line bins today so everyone in the organization knows exactly where an account stands at a glance.
Absolutely. So we have covered a massive amount of ground here. We've walked through the strict prerequisites, the absolute necessity of specializing your roles, the deep psychological targeting of the ICP, the counterintuitive brilliance of the plain text referral email, the 70-30 listening rule of discovery, and the vital quality control of the handoff.
It's a lot to process.
It is. But if we synthesize all of these distinct moving parts, what is the true soul of this chapter?
So what does this all mean? When you pull back and look at the whole picture, the true breakthrough of cold calling 2.0 isn't just a sneaky new email template to bypass a secretary. It isn't just a clever voicemail script.
Not at all.
It's a fundamental paradigm shift in how we view the acquisition of revenue. It is the realization that B2B sales is no longer an art form reliant on individual hustlers, making hundreds of miserable, sweat-inducing cold calls through sheer willpower.
It is a highly predictable, specialized, heavily engineered manufacturing process. By treating lead generation as a distinct science, by respecting the buyer's inbox with short plaintext emails instead of spam, by listening 70% of the time on discovery calls to truly diagnose pain, and by deeply specializing your workforce into focused hunters and expert closers. A business can engineer absolute mathematical predictability into its revenue stream.
It's amazing.
You shift from aggressive, disruptive push selling, which modern buyers universally hate, to systematic, intelligent attraction and rigorous qualification.
It's moving from guessing, hoping, and panicking at the end of every quarter to knowing exactly how many inputs at the top of the funnel will equal exactly how many dollars in output at the bottom. It is the ultimate peace of mind for a business owner or a sales leader.
Knowledge is most valuable when it is deeply understood and systematically applied. The blueprint for the machine is right here. You just have to be willing to do the hard work of building it step by step and resisting the urge to take shortcuts.
Well said. But now that you've spent months building this incredibly efficient engine and the pristine, highly qualified leads are finally flowing in from your SDR team, how do you make sure your closers don't completely drop the ball, fumble the complex negotiation, and drastically lengthen your sales cycle?
That's the next big challenge.
That is exactly what we'll be decoding next time as we venture into the hidden traps of prospecting and sales best practices. Have you ever wondered if your own eager sales pitch is actually the exact thing driving your best customers away? We'll find out next time. Until then, happy building.
What you just listened was the beginning of a full audio, way longer, explaining every single chapter of the book. If you would like to keep listening to the end and access to the full audio, you can access it with the link down below in the description and in the pinned comment.